All right, let's get right into it. We're talking about Hurricane Melissa. And this storm, wow, it's not just about its power. It's a perfect example of what rapid development really looks like. We're going to break down exactly how this thing just blew up in strength and, what that means for everybody in its path.
So that leads to the big question, right? How on earth does a storm go from, just a storm to a major hurricane in less than 24 hours? It seems impossible. To get our heads around that, we've got to look at the timeline.
And this, right here, is where the story just gets wild. We're talking about Melissa's rapid intensification. This wasn't some slow burn, predictable storm building up over days. Nope, this was like a switch was flipped. An absolute explosion of power in just a matter of hours.
Okay, so just so we're all on the same page, what does major hurricane even mean? Well, it's a storm that hits Category 3 or higher. We're talking sustained winds of at least 111 miles per hour. That's the magic number where things go from bad to, well, truly, truly destructive.
So how long did it take Melissa to hit that mark? Get this, just 1 day. It went from a Category 1 hurricane to something way, way more dangerous, all within the same 24-hour window. Incredible.
I mean, look at that leap in power. The storm didn't just kind of inch its way up the scale. It jumped. It went from a Category 1 straight to a major Category 3. That is just a staggering amount of energy being unleashed in the atmosphere.
And here's where we are right now. The sustained winds are clocking in at 115 miles per hour. And that's not a guess, that's not a forecast, that's the real, measured power of this thing as we speak. So the big question is, where is all this energy going? Well, the first major target in its path is Jamaica, and right now they are bracing for a direct, and I mean severe, hit.
With these storms, we always focus on the wind, but sometimes the biggest threat is the water. And in this case, projections are showing Jamaica could get absolutely swamped with 10 to 15 inches of rain. I mean, just try to picture that amount of water coming down.
And that much rain, well, it leads to some really devastating consequences. We're talking about a huge risk of dangerous mudslides, widespread flooding, you name it. It's no surprise that disaster preparations are already in full swing down there. People know what's coming, and they're trying to get ready.
And if the rain wasn't enough, just look at what's happening at sea. We've got wave heights of 16 feet already rolling toward the island. That just adds a whole other layer of danger, right? You've got storm surge, coastal erosion. It's a multi-pronged threat.
But Melissa's journey doesn't end with Jamaica. The forecast shows it's going to keep moving, and its track is set to take it right over the Bahamas next. It's just continuing to carve its path across the Caribbean. So here's a look at the projected path. You can see it clearly. First, that direct hit on Jamaica. Then, it moves right across the Bahamas. And after that, this is key, it's expected to make a big turn to the north, heading out into the open Atlantic.
And here's the scary part. This storm might not even be done intensifying. Some forecast models are suggesting that right before landfall, Melissa's winds could ramp up to 160 miles per hour. To put that in perspective, that's well into Category 5 territory. That's the top of the scale, the worst it can get.
Okay, so you might be thinking, all right, it turns out into the Atlantic, so the U.S. is in the clear, right? Well, not so fast. That's not the whole story. We've got to talk about the ripple effects, because even from far away, this storm poses some really significant threats to the U.S. coast. So first things first, let's get the good news out of the way. And this comes straight from the forecast. It does not look like the center of the storm is going to make a direct hit on the southeastern U.S. And that is obviously a massive relief for millions of people.
But, and you knew there was a but coming, right? This is a really important one. That does not mean the danger is over, not by a long shot.
And if you want to know why, just look at this number. Even from hundreds of miles offshore, this storm is churning up the ocean, creating massive 22-foot waves near its core. And all that energy, it has to go somewhere. It radiates outward, like ripples in a pond.
So this is the key thing to understand. On the one hand, yes, no direct landfall, that's great. But on the other hand, the U.S. coast is still going to feel some pretty significant impacts. And those are two very, very different things. So what are we talking about exactly? Well, you can expect really high wave heights, super dangerous rip currents, the kind that can pull even strong swimmers out in a heartbeat, and just generally high surf pounding the coastline. And for Florida, especially down in Miami and the Keys, you might even get grazed by some of Melissa's outer rain bands. So, if there's one thing you take away from all of this, let it be this. A hurricane does not need to make landfall to be dangerous. A monster storm churning hundreds of miles out in the ocean can still create incredibly dangerous conditions for anyone near the coast.
And all of this leaves us with a really big, important question for the future. When you have storms like Melissa that can just explode in strength this quickly, this rapid intensification, what does that mean for us? How does it change the game for forecasting, and more importantly, for giving people on the coast enough time to prepare for the worst?